Alain Prost was known as the Professor for a reason. He didn't just drive Formula One cars, he calculated every move, outthought his rivals, and won 4 world championships through pure intelligence and precision. But in 1997, the smartest driver of his generation made the biggest mistake of his life. He bought an F1 team. What began as the ultimate French dream, a French legend leading a French team with a French engine, ended in financial ruin, public humiliation, and one of the most tragic stories in modern motorsport. 5 years later, Prost Grand Prix was bankrupt, buried under $30 million in debt, and Prost himself was left wondering how a man who rarely lost on track could lose so completely off it. This is the heartbreaking story of how the Professor's greatest ambition became his greatest failure. The Trap, 1997 to 1998. It started with genuine promise. In 1997, Prost acquired the Ligier team, rebranding it as Prost Grand Prix. The first season looked encouraging. Olivier Panis delivered strong results, including a podium in the chaotic 1997 Monaco Grand Prix, and the team sat as high as third in the constructors' standings mid-season. The French press hailed it as the beginning of a new golden era for French motorsport. Behind the scenes, however, a dangerous trap was already closing. Prost had entered negotiations with Peugeot for a long-term engine supply. He believed he had a handshake deal, free engines plus millions in technical development support. It seemed perfect. A fully French package with national pride and financial backing. Then, just 48 hours before the final contract was due to be signed, Peugeot changed the terms. They now demanded that Prost pay for the engines. The cost was significant, and the support far less generous than promised. Prost later admitted in interviews that he wanted to walk away at that exact moment. The numbers no longer added up, the risk was too high. But ego, national pride, and the seductive vision of the French dream proved too powerful. Prost signed the contract anyway. In doing so, he effectively signed the team's long-term death warrant before they had even moved into their new headquarters. That single decision would haunt the project for the rest of its short, painful life. The spiral, politics, and the truck. By the year 2000, the relationship between Prost and Peugeot had turned toxic. The Peugeot engines were heavy, unreliable, and chronically underpowered. During the 2000 season alone, the team suffered an astonishing 57 mechanical failures. The AP03 car looked beautiful in its metallic blue livery, but on track it was painfully slow and fragile. Prost, never one to hide his feelings, began publicly criticizing the power plant. In a moment that echoed his infamous truck comment about the Ferrari in 1991, he openly called the Peugeot engine a major handicap. Peugeot hit back hard, claiming their engine was world-class and that the real problem was Prost's rubbish chassis. The public war between the two French icons damaged both parties, but it destroyed the team. While the giants argued, the small outfit suffered in silence. In 2000, Prost Grand Prix scored 0 points. Not a single point all season. They became the most expensive backmarkers in F1 history. A team with a 4-time world champion at the helm that couldn't even beat the minnows. Sponsors started to flee. Yahoo and Gauloises, once proud backers, quietly withdrew. The factory in France became a financial black hole, draining money faster than anyone could pump it back in. The team was trapped in a vicious cycle. Poor performance scared away sponsors, lack of money prevented development, and lack of development guaranteed more poor performance. Prost, the master strategist on track, found himself powerless in the brutal world of F1 politics and finance. The final betrayal, 2001 to 2002. Desperate to save the sinking ship, Prost made one last gamble in 2001. He ditched Peugeot and secured customer Ferrari engines, but at a brutal cost of $25 million. To keep the lights on, he brought in retired driver Pedro Diniz as a shareholder, injecting much-needed cash. For a brief moment, survival seemed possible. Prost even had a deal lined up with a Saudi prince who promised $10 million to help finish the season and stabilize the team. Everything was nearly in place. Then, the world changed overnight. The September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks sent global markets into freefall. Investor confidence collapsed. The Saudi funding evaporated almost instantly. Suddenly, the promised millions disappeared into thin air. Prost was left holding an empty bag and mounting debts. On January 28, 2002, the dream officially died. Prost Grand Prix was declared bankrupt, with debts reportedly exceeding $25 to $30 million. The team that was meant to be France's proud return to the front of the grid was gone after just 5 painful seasons. Employees were laid off. The factory was sold. The beautiful blue cars were auctioned off or left to gather dust. Alain Prost didn't just lose money, he lost something far more valuable, his reputation as the man who never failed. The lesson: genius behind the wheel, not in the boardroom. Years later, Alain Prost reflected on the disaster with painful honesty. In interviews, he admitted, "If I made one mistake in my life, it was this. I should not have done it." For a man who built his career on precision and minimizing errors, that confession carried enormous weight. This wasn't just a failed business venture. It was a deeply personal miscalculation that contradicted everything he once stood for. The tragedy runs deeper than simple bad luck. Prost was a calculating genius on the track, a driver who mastered races through intelligence, tire preservation, and psychological control. He earned the nickname the Professor because he approached racing like a science. But the uncomfortable truth is that the very qualities that made him exceptional behind the wheel did not translate to the chaotic, politically driven world of team ownership in Formula One. Running a Formula One team demands an entirely different skill set. It's not about managing lap times, it's about managing people, budgets, sponsors, and politics. Prost entered this world believing that intelligence and reputation would be enough. Instead, he found himself in an environment where influence, negotiation, and financial power mattered far more than racing instinct. At the same time, he overestimated the power of his own reputation. As a four-time world champion, Prost assumed his name would secure stability and trust, and initially it did open doors. But in Formula One, reputation fades quickly when results don't follow. The respect he commanded as a driver could not protect him from the harsh realities of running an underperforming team. Perhaps the most critical mistake, however, was his reliance on informal agreements in a sport built on strict contracts. The Peugeot engine deal, initially based on what Prost believed to be a handshake understanding, became a defining turning point. When the terms changed at the last moment, he faced a choice: walk away or commit to a flawed deal. He chose to continue, driven by the dream of creating a unified French project. In hindsight, that decision set the foundation for everything that went wrong. And that is the central irony of the story. Prost's driving career was defined by emotional control and calculated thinking. Yet as a team owner, he allowed emotion to guide critical decisions. The dream of building a great French team clouded the logical judgment that had once made him so successful. The story of Prost Grand Prix remains one of the most powerful cautionary tales in motorsport. It shows that success in one area, even at the highest level, does not guarantee success in another. Formula One history includes other champions who attempted team ownership, such as Jackie Stewart and John Surtees, but Prost's failure stands out for how quickly and dramatically it unfolded. Today, Prost Grand Prix exists only as a memory. Its metallic blue cars, once symbols of ambition and national pride, now sit in museums and private collections. They represent not just failure, but lost potential, a reminder of what might have been if different decisions had been made. To his credit, Prost eventually rebuilt his reputation. He stepped away from ownership and returned to roles that better suited his strengths, including advisory and consultancy positions. Over time, his legacy as a driver once again took center stage. Still, the experience left a lasting mark. For someone so used to control, the collapse of his team was a humbling lesson. It showed that intelligence and experience are not always enough in an environment as complex and unforgiving as Formula One. In the end, Prost Grand Prix didn't fail simply because the cars were slow. It failed because its foundations were flawed from the beginning. Poor contracts, financial instability, political conflict, and emotional decision-making created a structure that could not survive. It was a team built on vision rather than sustainability. And that is the ultimate lesson. Even the greatest minds can struggle when they step outside their domain.